Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Trainwreck Sports Podcast, where we are here to pay the bills, and we're clocking in for the start of the Bills 2024-2025 campaign. So I brought in a couple special guests for this first episode, this training camp preview of the Pay the Bills podcast. We're joined by Big Slick and none other than Maniac himself, live from the pit.
Things are looking good over here, gents. Ready for a big season kickoff home opener? Just 47 days away. Let's go.
47. When I saw our post go up today of 47, today, I don't know what about the number 47 jarred me today, but it made me feel like we're really close. And I got really excited. Maybe it was just the combination of training camp opening and everything today, but it is the day that players are reporting to training camp. Practices start tomorrow, Slick. Can you believe that football season is already here?
In a way, yeah, but it doesn't feel real yet because we've still got this beautiful Buffalo weather, which is totally not normal football weather. You know, once you get into the season, you're a little more rugged up. But I think it's all going to really kick in for me when we get down to St. John Fisher over the weekend and boys are putting on pads and getting ready to go, running drills and routes and whatnot. And yeah, football season's right around the corner. I can't wait. I've been saying I've been really excited for this for a while, but still taking advantage of the weather while I can.
All right, Slick's not rushing along summer, so I like that. Maniac, how are you feeling? How's the weather in the pit?
Weather in the pit's great. We're here to put in work, and unfortunately, I'm the opposite of Slick. Get me out of these 85-degree days and get me to those bitter 52-degree early October days in Western New York. Get me to that strong start that McDermott always gets out to. Can't wait for that beautiful fall weather. Can't wait for this football, gents. Let's go.
Who are you? What's going on?
I'm just loving it. I'm embracing the power of positivity. You guys aren't doing that enough. You guys are all thinking about everything else. I'm thinking about how happy I am to see everyone watching on Facebook, how happy I am to see everyone on YouTube, how happy I am to see everyone on X. What a time to be alive. The Bills, less than 50 days away. I'm telling you, I look forward to this all year. You guys know that, and that's no joke.
I just want to say for the record that I have a timestamp ready to go, and it says Maniac thinks fall is elite. So we'll flip that and get it over to our intern as soon as possible.
Soon as possible. Fall is elite. Glad that you're on this side. We definitely won't bring this back up in 4 months.
Never.
Else. But let's get into it, guys. We've got training camp starts tomorrow, and so we've done a lot of talk all off season, right? We've dissected free agency moves, the free agency losses, the big trades, the draft class, the draft trades, everything else. So I've tried to condense it into 5 things that we can talk about here that are just, to me, I feel like these are the biggest things that we need to figure out in camp. And so you guys, I want to hear what you guys have been at. This is what I've been thinking about the most leading up to training camp. So Maniac, I'm going to start with you, and then we'll go to Slick here. The number one priority, which I think this is the most obvious, is who's going to be the top offensive weapon, and will there just be one? And I just want to know where you feel like it's going to end up falling, the hierarchy.
And let's face it. If you're a Bills fan right now, you're targeting 2 guys in your brain, and they're guys with continuity still coming into this year and targets that kind of came on strong at the end of last year in the form of Khalil Shakir and Dalton Kincaid. Now, the flip side is that everyone in the NFL who watched film last year knows that's exactly what you want to do. So the challenge for Coach Joe, this offense, is to basically who can they build out and who can they kind of supplement that with on the offensive side of things. So I do think ultimately they're going into this season with the goal of Dalton Kincaid being their top offensive weapon, the guy to be able to pick up those third and intermediates, the guy they want to target early on in a set of downs. With that said, we were seeing some rumblings last week. Shout out to Buffalo Rumblings. Curtis Samuel, reps in the backfield, was I seeing under Coach Joe? We know Coach Joe likes to cook. We saw how he did at the end of last year, and especially out of the backfield, pre-snap motion. That seems like something that Curtis Samuel could be a dark horse for. So I think you obviously have your two leading candidates, but then you have Curtis Samuel, who could be kind of in that discussion.
Yeah, Maniac took the words right out of my mouth. But like you said, the rest of the league knows that too. Every executive, if you're scouting film or something, they're looking at those two guys as the top two weapons. But I think it's a little silly to just sleep right away on all these new guys that we're bringing in. Sure, they're not the big star power names that we did once have to the right and left of our quarterback, but I think you still got some guys that are going to surprise a lot of people. Even though Kincaid and Shakir are going to have good matchups on them each time, I think you do still see them produce, get those third and shorts like Maniac was saying. Dawson Knox could even have a bounce back here. If that happens, you get more into that 2 tight end system. See how Coach Joe runs that instead. I think that could be very interesting. Obviously, when you let James cook, we just say, yes, chef, we'll have another. But I think guys like Keon Coleman and Chase Claypool are going to really surprise some people in their first year with the Bills.
All right, I love what you guys are saying. So are you guys in agreement here that Kincaid, the leaderboard, and then everything else, Samuel maybe a little bit ahead of like a tier 2, and then everybody else is kind of going to get theirs though. No one like blowing it out of the water.
I think it's going to be very even keeled offense for the most part. But yeah, I think they're going to surprise a lot of people for sure.
It feels like a long time ago right now, but wasn't it the saying at the beginning of OTAs, everybody eats? That was basically going to be the thought process for them. But speaking of everybody eating, I do want to jump on what Slick said. Dawson Knox, career high in touchdowns this year.
Oh,
mark that down.
Red zone weapon again.
Red zone weapon again.
I thought you were going to say everybody eats, so let's go get some Picasso's pizza. Which
no,
is
everybody. Well, listen,
here.
I can only plug them 50 times.
Only 50 times.
Hey, I just want
to you're keeping the quota down early.
I just want to expand on that. If it's his career year in touchdowns, Maniac, do we see a lot of first touchdown score bets again this year? Is that the play?
Oh.
I mean, let's face it. If you bet it, against the Steelers in the playoffs, it was a great bet and it hit. It knocks.
And who would have thought?
He's always been someone. He's had a number of first touchdowns in playoff games, by the way. But he's had a number of first touchdowns overall. He's always been a favorite target of Josh. Yeah, did he kind of cool off after that amazing, start in 2021 where he was literally a world beater? Yes, but I think he can get back to that 40 to 60 catches and 10 touchdowns this year.
Sheesh.
All right. That would change a lot of trajectory for where all these receivers end up and everything. But I like it. That's the thing is you could any of you could have named any player, and there's a case for that can be made, whether it's Coleman, whether it's Shakir, whether it's Knox or Kincaid or Samuel. Those names maybe not big names, but I feel like it's a really solid group, and I'm really excited to see who it is. I have a lot of faith in Curtis Samuel this year. I really do, but I think Kincaid will be leading in receptions, leading in targets, all that. But I think right behind him Samuel will be very highly featured. And the running, we didn't even say anything about the running backs. We didn't mention James Cook. We didn't mention Ray Davis, who I think are going to be.
I just said let him say we'll have another.
That's true. You did. That's true. My bad.
It's not much else to say when he cooks,
That's fair.
I will say though, I feel like that's the one guy in the offense. Kincaid and Shakir, obviously, they started to come into their own later in the season a lot more, and there's a little more in the playoffs too. But I think James Cook, is he that one guy on offense that you can count on at this point, except for Josh?
If he is, that's the biggest boom that they can ask for, because I feel like people aren't talking about him as that guy. Like they're more everybody's focusing on the drops and focusing on the fact that it was a good year last year, but maybe he can't do that consistently more. I feel like at least in national media and other things. So if he is that guy, if he's a top 5 running back again, and these weapons are as diverse as we were just talking about, this offense is going to be good right away. But talking about a guy who started to bounce back towards the end of the year, I think even had his best game in the last game against the Chiefs. Slick, it's a simple question, and I'll start with you here. Is Von Miller going to bounce back? Von had a long year injury-wise, coming back from the ACL. Von Miller had a tough year off the field.
To keep it short and sweet, not exactly.
Not exactly. You think he's just washed? He's just done?
No, I don't think so. I think there will be glimmers of hope, but as you can see with Maniac's helmet right now, which you totally shouldn't be doing in a construction zone, by the way. Just putting that out there. But I don't know if we see the same Von ever again. Spurs of hope, maybe, but it would be hard to be worse than you were in that ending stretch of the season last season. But I don't think it'll ever be LA, Denver, Showtime, Von Miller that's on the line. I would love it if he can just get a little bit back to his old self, because I think we've all talked about this. When he plays better, you can like kind of count less on those other guys like Eddie O and Greg Rousseau, who had trouble like getting injured down the stretch of the season as well. So it'd be nice to have a nice, healthy defensive front, and Von can actually like get around anybody and put some hands on a QB. I think it'll be better than the end of last season, but I wouldn't get hopes up too much, and it doesn't seem like Maniac wants to either. But
yeah, I'm curious what Maniac's thoughts are over there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Von, you need to be exactly like I am right now. Nose to the ground. Let's focus on making an impact on every play. You can't look at the peripherals. Can't look on your left. Can't look on your right. With that said, Slick made a great point, which is also a rarity. Might as well put the timestamp down for that one too. If you get a healthy front, Ed Oliver, Daquan, Rousseau, Von Miller, you don't need a full Von Miller bounce back. You'll be just fine with that front, even with Von Miller, part of what he was last year. By the way, credit to the Thigh Doctor. I don't know if you guys follow him on Twitter, but he does a great job breaking down the Bills' injuries and everything. Did a great dive into Von Miller last year. When he came back, he essentially couldn't move like directions. Like he couldn't move left, he couldn't move right. Like it was really a sad state of affairs. And he showed some film against the Steelers and the Chiefs in the playoffs where he was much more mobile, a lot more of just pliability. And obviously that means a lot when he's got to get low around those tackles, things like that. So I'm not optimistic that he's going to bounce back all the way. I don't think he's going to be the closer that he was in 2022, but I think he can be that seventh inning, fireballer that can kind of get us through a spot.
Okay, so you're both cautiously optimistic. That's what I'm gathering from that. Like, you don't think he's going to be a superstar again, but you think he can contribute at some point on this defensive line. That's what
if he doesn't get injured. I got him down for 6 to 8 sacks.
And I feel like that's all they really need from him. Like,
I agree, especially with the way, like we were saying, Rousseau and them boys are playing up front.
Well, yeah,
I think
the pressure is really on Rousseau to be the guy who takes over this defensive line.
I hate to say it, I'm more nervous about a Rousseau foot injury in week 2
I agree.
than I am about anything regarding Von Miller, because we know, that's not necessarily fair to, mark Rousseau like that as well, because Daquan got hurt last year. You see Ed Oliver, something always comes up in the year. But man, when you see like this front four rushing in these week 1 games, they are tenacious, whether it was last year against the Jets, whether it was the year before against the Rams when Von Miller was going off with 2 sacks there. If you get a healthy front, McDermott coached up, they're going to be a fireball at the gate. Hope we can keep them healthy.
Who's more important to the defense? Is it Greg Rousseau or Ed Oliver?
I think Eddie O. Too much going on in that middle. Rousseau gets splash plays. He gets sacks. He can get to the outside for sure. And Rousseau's up there. If you're talking about a top 10 most important Bill. Right off the cuff, I could say that for sure. But Ed Oliver, just like Daquan, when we noticed that last year, you lose Daquan, all of a sudden, you're getting gashed up the middle by running plays. Teams are able to keep the ball out of Josh's hand and keep that clock moving to put more pressure on the Bills. When you could stop that run with Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones in the middle, really gives your defense a lot of opportunities, which McDermott and co. and obviously Babich this year take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I just think Greg Rousseau, you can count on more for like those freakish athlete ability plays, the highlight ones. Eddie O, though, is a guy that you don't want to have out of that front four at all, ever. So I agree with Maniac.
I agree with both of you, but I think Rousseau still has that potential. This is the year where it has to show, where he could turn into a game record defensive end and he becomes the most important guy on that defense. I think that potential is still there. maybe this is the year where it all kind of comes together for him. We'll see. I'm excited about this defensive line this year. You brought up, it's a great segue. This is why this works so well here, because you brought up Bobby Babich, and I have to ask the question about Sean McDermott. Is how much is he going to trust these two new offensive and defensive coordinators? Now, I know Joe Brady had the interim title last year. He's been with the team a couple years. Babich has obviously been there, I think, 7 years before getting the head job this year. But is Sean going to let them cook, as Slick said earlier? Or is he gonna hold the reins real tight on these guys? How do you think it's going to go? We'll start with you, Maniac, then go to Slick.
Real quick, my knee jerk is that he's going to give him a lot of leash because I think that he trusts that Babich knows what he wants to do. Like you said, that 5 to 6 years of tutelage underneath him. And we saw with Brady last year, I don't know if it was McDermott. This always goes back to me that nobody covered this storyline. But who made the decision that Josh Allen was able to run all over the field again? Was it Joe Brady building into the game plan, or was it McDermott throwing caution to the wind, being 6-5 and being like, we need to do anything we can to win and just make the playoffs at this point? It's a very interesting thing that I don't understand, because if McDermott allowed Brady to do that, that shows a ton of trust, right?
Sure.
Like that shows an unbelievable amount. So with that said, I do think McDermott is going to give both these guys slack and let them cook for at least the first half of the season. And I really do think it gives him the opportunity for the first time in a while to kind of take a broader look at the team and maybe look at areas where he can improve.
I think that's a great point by Maniac, because McDermott knows there's been a lot of criticism on how much slack he is giving these guys that he puts in these roles. Obviously, Brady's already been there, and he's got all the trust of your players seemingly already. They've all spoken very highly about this guy. That's the only thing that worries me, that McDermott's not going to give him slack for whatever reason, just because I can be a pessimist sometimes. But if he gives him too much, it's probably better than not enough. But I think, like Maniac said, 5 or 6 games in is a great reassessing point of what's going good and what's not. I think it is a great opportunity for McDermott to have a better field scale of what's going on as a whole, instead of having to focus on too much at once. I think the trust in Brady is for sure there already. I would hope so, at least. And I hope it can translate over just as well and as much to Babich. But that's going to be the question mark for me. I think based on what we saw when Brady took over, we have a good idea of what McDermott and Brady are going to allow to happen on the offensive side. But hey, we at the end of the day, we don't really know until we see the in-game play. So
one wrap-up note, just too, in 2018, don't forget week 2, he took those defensive coordinator responsibilities from Leslie Frazier for the second half of the home opener. I would hope that him and Babich have a collaborative, kind of work relationship, to where, because I think he took him from Frazier because he knows Frazier is set in his ways.
Yeah.
And McDermott has his ways and he wants a certain thing done. So he took it there. I would hope that Babich and McDermott work collaboratively enough to where McDermott can just recommend an adjustment and leave everything else under Babich if something is going awry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant by McDermott's, his hands are in a bit too many pots, especially when he basically started taking the defense from Leslie. So yeah, I hope the relationship can work a bit better. And like you said, the adjustments and suggestions can translate to what Babich is trying to do with the defense.
Yeah, and that's a great point you just made, because it could start out that way, and then McDermott could also change his mind partway through the year too. So we don't really know what to expect from there. I'm leaning with you guys too. I think Brady will have ultimate freedom to do what he needs to do with this offense. And it is a great point about when Josh decided to run, or if he decided to run, if it was more put in the game plan. I tend to think Dorsey did not want Josh to run, and everything about Ken Dorsey makes me think that he just wanted to have a quarterback go out there and air it out all day long and do nothing else creative. But the desperation had to be part of it too, because what else are you going to do at that point?
I will say too, speaking of desperation, I was very impressed at how composed Brady was when he stepped in, and they did go on that run right after. It's very impressive. So I do have a lot of faith in Joe Brady.
Yeah, I'm buying into the Brady stock, especially with all the hype he had even coming to the NFL in the first place. So the next question, I got 2 more here. The next question is it's about the secondary, because it's a lot of question marks, a lot of change around there. But I'm going to present it in 2 different ways, with the cornerbacks and the safeties. We'll start with the corners. The presumed starters are Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford, and obviously Taron Johnson in the slot. Do you think Kyrie Elam pushes either one of those starting roles? I'll start with you, Slick.
I think he could. I think the cornerback spot, there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. It's great to have Benford, especially when he stepped in. But oh, dude, this if there wasn't a question that is like, what is your biggest worry question mark going into the Bills season? This is it for me, is the secondary, because we all know that these guys can like step in and play, but they jumped in for like the veterans that we've always had in that backfield there, and now it's like, okay, who's actually going to take the starting role? We need the guys to step up full time. Elam Shoney can do it. I don't think he'd take Benford or Rasul's spot, but I want to hear what Maniac thinks, because the secondaries just got me so flustered when I look at this depth chart.
Well, there's two schools of thought for me. The first is continuity. They can pick up right where they left off virtually last year with those guys at cornerback. And I think with the changeover in safeties, it's tempting to do that. The other school of thought is that for some reason, I don't know if you guys remember, but there were some weird like Kaiir Elam injury narratives coming out like after the year, like, well, he was playing hurt and like he was hurt in training camp and it lingered all year long. Like, it's almost like the Bills brass wants you to believe in Kaiir Elam because he has to be the one dropping those facts. I don't think it's his agent like dropping those through other channels. So I think the Bills do believe in Kaiir Elam, and that was the part of the first step in their getting his confidence back up, was kind of putting out those stories and everything. So with that said, I think we ultimately see the same starters out of the gate for sure in the preseason. But I would not be surprised at all to see Kaiir take over, and I would not be surprised to see him play at an elite level. That sounds crazy because this is a guy who was getting torn up a little bit last year. I get it, but you give a guy another full year of development. He was able to kind of sit back and see the game from a different view. We know he has the athletics, and we know that McDermott can kind of squeeze the most out of a defensive player as possible. Like examples, Matt Milano, Christian Bedford's ground, what he got out of Hyde and Poyer for those years. Yeah, they were great safeties, but that scheme clearly was perfectly toned to what they could do. So I think that if Elam does see the crowd, watch out for the dodge there, Slick. I saw you moving like Neo in the Matrix over there. But I would not be surprised to see Kaiir Elam starting by the regular season, honestly.
I'm with you, Maniac, and that's why I wanted to bring up Elam, because I still feel like there was a lot. I feel like exactly what you said. There's still a lot of belief in that room from what's been coming out about him, and it doesn't hurt to have three quality corners and guys that you can switch in and out of matchups and everything else. Douglas has had injury issues. Benford's had injury issues. Elam's going to have to play a big role, whether it's taking a starting job or being just a solid backup the whole year. Cole Bishop, quickly. Do you think he wins a spot from Mike Edwards and Taylor Rapp, or does he have to wait a little bit into the year? Classic McDermott with a rookie type move.
You took the words right out of my mouth there, so I won't say anything. Classic McDermott, he's not starting until at least week 4-8, but we'll probably see like an interception and a big play in like week 5 or something out of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's where I'm leaning to. I think it's like after week 4, at least someone either makes a disastrous play in the secondary that McDermott has to get them out of there and see what Cole can give right away, or I don't want to say the I word because we know how that is, but yeah, if that happened, yeah, I think he'll get thrown in at some point.
All right,
real quick about the I word too, though, because I do want it bears worth mentioning. We're talking starters, everything. I think the last 2 years, especially, I think to the McDermott teams, 2017, 18, 19, 20, even 21, really never had that many injuries. Then 2022, you lose at the end of 21, you lose Trey White. 22, you lose Von Miller. 23 was just a disaster with injuries all over the place. So I think they're more ready and more prepared for that angle than ever. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it play out with some of these depth decisions.
And a lot of those guys that were getting like collateral injuries where they were kind of prone to injury, where they come off one and then seemingly go into another when everything starts to look good again, are gone. So, hopefully it's a fresh, clean slate and boys can stay healthy. That's all that matters.
For sure. All right, last question. We'll do this quickly here. Maniac, you start. How are the vibes in training camp from the team? Vibes have been weird. They started off good with this run, got weird real quick. How do you think they are coming into this year?
Well, I just want to say something. Winning will decide everything. If this team is winning in the preseason, if they start 2-1, 3-0, everything will be fine. Right now, the vibes are great. You have Josh Allen, clean, kind of like a cleanse of the offensive side of the locker room. I say that with respect to Stephon Diggs. If he doubled his Bills career, he'd be a Wall of Famer, no doubt. He'd be a Pantheon receiver in the history of Buffalo Bills lore, for sure. With that said, he left under kind of auspicious terms. He kind of shat himself on the way out. His brother was saying he wanted to be traded. He wasn't denying it. He was saying, ask my brother, which is like bullshit. Like, what is this, WWE? With that said, so I like the vibes on the offensive side. And I think the defense, I will say, is a little bit nervous, I bet you. Because, you got all those guys up front who have a lot like proven that they want to continue and establish. And then you have secondary guys with a lot to prove and kind of big chip on their shoulders. So I'd say it's a tale of two vibes right now.
Okay.
I agree. I think the vibes are great. You got a lot of new, fresh faces, new characters that a lot of people are excited to have as part of the organization. The fan base likes them. It's just a matter of how it's going to translate on the field. And I think the biggest thing with this new group and all these new faces is how they handle adversity. Like, we knew all those guys last year when they did go into desperation mode and they needed to win 5 games back to back. We knew that they were capable. It was just a matter if they buckled down and did it. If this team goes and loses 2 to 3 games early, that's when we're going to get a real look at how they can handle themselves under unique pressure circumstances like that. And I did feel the same way about Maniac. I love the offense feeling good. I bet the defense does feel a little pressure, but this defense has a chance to turn things into a really great year all around for themselves. Maniac, you were even pointing out maybe a top 5 defensive year if things all go the right way. So I feel great. I'm excited. Training camp is this coming weekend, and it's going to be great to see the guys back on the field, boots on the ground. Can't wait to watch Bills football again.
Well, I know the vibes are high with you, Slick, so that's good.
I'm always high, baby.
I'm with you guys. I think it's great right now. Go ahead, Maniac.
Well, I was going to say, are you guys expecting this training camp to be the Keon Coleman show? The clips every day? I mean, because this guy puts out a clip every time the camera's on him. Or do you think anybody else is going to steal the attention? I think 2 long shots are Matt Collins, who was going nuts at the softball game, and Chase Claypool coming in with something. I think this whole receiver room wants to be best friends with Josh Allen and wants to be best friends with Bills Mafia.
That's another thing I wanted to say about the vibes is they all seem to like be gelling right away very well, especially the receiver unit with Josh, because it's almost like they felt like they needed that camaraderie at that position, and it seems to be looking good. So
I completely agree. The biggest thing for me is that the pressure is really off this team, and there's still a core lead. Even though they lost a lot of leaders, they still have a lot of core leaders in there, whether it be obviously Allen, Dawkins, Milano, like guys that have just been around, even just been around for a couple of years. Knox, just on the offensive line. Spencer Brown, who you don't think of as a veteran, but he's been around for a couple of years now. And he's, there's people putting him high on tackle lists this year and everything else, and getting the respect. Like, it's a new leadership core, but they still have a lot of that in place. And a lot of the pressure's off, bro. USA Today yesterday picked the Jets to win the division. A couple weeks ago, I don't remember what the other one was. It was the Jets and the Dolphins were both ahead of them. Like, I'm sure the Bills are going to win their fair share of preseason division championships, but this is the most contested it's been since this run has started. And that has to feel good for this team when last year the expectations were sky high and the vibes were off. Like, it was a bad confluence of events, and it was still a team that went to the divisional round. So I think that they're feeling pretty good coming into this year. But as you guys said, winning is all that matters, really.
Yeah, and clearly being the 2nd or 3rd Super Bowl favorite didn't do them any favors. I'm happy with our 6th to 7th spot right now and our 2nd MVP favorite rolling into the season. By the way, you're talking about veterans. Don't forget continuity with our guy entering year 8, Reed Ferguson.
Yeah. Wow, that threw me for a loop for a second. But Josh MVP year. This is the one.
All right. Love a bold prediction right at the end. Love that from you, Slick. All right. We paid the bills. Go ahead. Oh, no. Wait. Maniac, you got one more to pay?
Oh, no. No, I was all about it. I love the Josh Allen MVP odds because I love the logic that the rest of the universe thinks he lost Diggs. So for him to have a great year right now kind of double juxtapositions him in the MVP.
By them getting doubted so much before the season, created by the media, they can then create the narrative that Josh Allen overcame all the odds and was the MVP. So I like that vision that you got there. Like that. So we paid the bills. Shout out to Picasso's. Get your pizza anywhere around the country from Picasso's. They'll be with us all season long. Training camp starts tomorrow, boys. Have a good night now.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.